Yes, you can assume whenever a citizen runs from a police officer that he may be guilty of something, but you cannot be the judge, jury, and executioner in that situation. You can only be the cop trying to do his duty. The 6 officers involved in this arrest on April 24, 2015, Police Commissioner Anthony Batts said, "We know our police employees failed to get him medical attention in a timely manner multiple times. Multiple times. Batts and also acknowledged police did not follow procedure when they failed to buckle Gray in the van while he was being transported to the police station." The U.S. Department of Justice also opened an investigation into this case. These six officers, none of them would make sure that procedures were followed. This is definitely a bad situation, a bad PR situation for the Baltimore Police Department. I mean, you have 6 officers involved in the situation, and none of them proceeded to do the proper procedures. In fact, this week, as I said, the charges I just mentioned there's 3 counts of false imprisonment. False imprisonment is a kind of a big deal. I mean, it's saying that they didn't have a reason to arrest him in the first place, and even so, the result of this arrest was that he was murdered, basically, or at least involuntary manslaughter, which I've never understood. The charge system in this country. Murder to me is murder, whether involuntary or not. If what your actions lead to the death of a person, in what sense is it important, whether or not you intentionally did it or not, to me is like completely insane. The following week, according to Gray's family attorney, Gray suffered from total cardiopulmonary arrest at least once, but was resuscitated without ever gaining consciousness. He remained in a coma and underwent extensive surgery in an effort to save his life. According to his family, he lapsed into a coma with 3 fractured vertebrae, injuries to his voice box and his spine, 80% severed at his neck. Police confirmed that the spinal injury led to Gray's death. The attorney also disputed the claim that Gray had been in possession of a switchblade and said it was actually a pocket knife of legal size. Gray died on April 19, 2015, the week after his arrest. And this was the cause of him being put into the wagon, apparently, was that the cops would use the excuse that he was carrying a switchblade, which is illegal in Baltimore, Maryland, apparently. But a pocket knife of legal size would sounds to me like he was not carrying a switchblade and was not, and then we had a false imprisonment charge coming from that, and that they obviously have led to the conclusion that the cops falsely arrested Mr. Gray and used the excuse that they bought a pocket knife looked like a switchblade. This is really a weak excuse for arresting an individual, but I've heard, I'm probably some of you in your course of your time amongst our fellow citizens, even more ridiculous cases. False imprisonment happens quite often, unfortunately. So, here is the full story. We're going to take you through it one more time, and let you be the judge and jury here of these police officers. This is the information we know, what we've been given, and I'll take you step by step through this and where I see mistakes made. Police encountered Freddie Gray on the morning of April 12, 2015, in a street near Baltimore's Gilmore Homes housing project, an area known to have high levels of home foreclosures, poverty, drug deals, and violent crimes. We all have these parts of our town and in our neighborhoods and Yes, it seems to me right here, we're not going to say it profiling. It could be possibly part of the problem here, but apparently, obviously, as a cop in certain areas of town, you are in a higher state of alert. According to the charging documents submitted by the Baltimore Police at 8:30 a.m., Lieutenant Brian W. Rice and Officer Garrett E. Miller were patrolling on bicycles and made eye contact with Gray, who proceeded to flee on foot, unprovoked upon noticing police presence. Now, Gray was apprehended after a brief foot chase. He was taken into custody with the use of force, without the use of force. He was taken into custody without the use of force or incident. So at this point, we have an arrest, or at least a person put in custody without any necessary reasons to use any force. So at this point, it's a very what would you call it? I guess you'd call it a without incident apprehension. Okay. During the arrest, the officer stated that he noticed a knife clipped to the inside of his front right pocket. The knife was recovered by this officer and found to be a spring-assisted one-hand operated knife. The formal charge filed by Garrett Miller accused Gray of violating statute 1959-22, unlawfully carrying, possessing, or selling a knife commonly known as a switchblade knife with an automatic spring or other devices for opening and or closing the blade within the limits of Baltimore City. This was found to be a false during the investigation as a knife of a folding type, which is not illegal. So these officers couldn't tell the difference between a switchblade and a pocket knife. Sad state of affairs in our country. A man's dead because police officers who we assume have been well trained and know all the laws and regulations of our towns. And these people, these cops, these two cops could not tell the difference between a pocket knife and a switchblade. And I'm thinking at some point that they actually realized they had a mistake, but because of the situation or having chased him on foot and had to apprehend him, even though it was without force or incident, that these police knew that there was going to be some judgment made on their part negatively. Now, two bystanders captured Gray's arrest with video recordings showing Gray apparently in pain being dragged into a police van by officers. A bystander with connections to Gray stated that the officers were previously folding Gray, with one officer bending Gray's legs backwards and another holding Gray down by pressing a knee into Gray's neck, subsequent to which most witnesses contemporaneously commented that he couldn't walk and can't use his legs, and his legs look broke, and you are dragging him like that. Another witness told the Baltimore Sun that they had witnessed Gray being beaten with batons. Now, again, we have to always be concerned with eyewitness accounts in areas, in any situation where police are involved. You're always going to get a few people who exaggerate or just want to, get their 15 minutes of fame on CNN. But to me, obviously, not all of this could have been lies, and the fact that they're bending this guy to the point where he couldn't walk and can't use his legs, and his legs look broke. That sounds to me like obviously an abusive situation. After a apprehension without force or incident, it seems after this, though, there was force and incident. And what would that be? The guy's obviously overwhelmed by the police officers, and we are not given any statements here that say whether or not he tried to resist arrest, but at this point, being dragged in the van that way doesn't seem to matter to me, to tell you the truth. According to the police timeline, Gray was placed in a transport van within 11 minutes of his arrest, and within 30 minutes, paramedics were summoned to take Gray to a hospital. The van made 4 confirmed stops while Gray was detained. Here we go. He was transported to the van, and within 11 minutes of arrest, and within another 19 minutes, Paramedics were summoned to take Gray to the hospital. Here's obviously a man who needed to go to the hospital, and yet the van makes 4 confirmed stops while Gray was detained. At 8:46 a.m., Gray was unloaded in order to be placed in leg irons because police said he was irate. And if you beat me with batons and you bended me to a point where my legs broke, I think I might be irate too. A later stop recorded by a private security camera shows the van stopped at a grocery store. At 8:59 a.m. A second prisoner was placed in the vehicle while officers checked on Gray's condition. Now, in the official police report, Officer Miller stated that during the transport to Western District via wagon transport, the defendant suffered a medical emergency and was immediately transported to shock trauma via medic. He was taken to the University of Maryland R. Adams County Shock Trauma Center in a coma. Now, the media has suggested the possibility of a so-called rough ride, where a handcuffed prisoner is placed without a seatbelt in an erratically driven vehicle as a contributing factor in Gray's injury. In the following week, according to Gray's family attorney, Gray suffered from total collateral arrest at least once, but was resuscitated without ever regaining consciousness, and then went into a coma and a week later died. There are so many things here that even if half of them are true, these 6 officers will be charged and will be found guilty. And like I said, I don't condone the violence and the looting that followed Mr. Gray's funeral. I see it as people taking advantage of the situation, and what I'm upset about mostly is that the peaceful protests were in some way interrupted by putting Baltimore into a week-long curfew, which I've now heard is going to extend over this weekend. And to that I say, I think that I understand there's the need to protect the citizens, and the fact that these unruly protests and these people who took advantage of the situation and were arsonists as well as looters and attacking police had seemingly taken over the city, and this was the response that we had to have. But I think by showing this show of force, the National Guard, Humvees, cops, thousands of cops, and in a situation where a baseball game couldn't even be played at night because it wasn't considered safe for the citizens, is an over-the-top response. If police officers do their duty right, they should be able to handle people being upset about a situation like this. And if not, I don't know. I'm on the. I'll just say I'm on the fence on this one as far as the response of the National Guard and the police force in Baltimore. The biggest reason not being that I understand that there's a lot of bad people out there taking advantage of the situation, using this as a race situation, where if I'm looking at this, it's not a race situation, by the way. I'm looking at this as a citizen situation. Citizens are being abused by cops, and the only way we seem to be able to catch the cops is have people video recording them on their cell phones, and this means that there are cops that are watching this and are looking the other way when they're not being recorded. And this is not a racial issue, it's a police issue against citizens, and citizens do need to stand up and say, hey, our rights are being abused. But as far as shutting down a city and patting yourself on the back as being able to do it without any uprisings, it is at best a non-moral victory, because there are people who are in their houses and their apartments unable to go outside because they're not allowed to. And in this country, that should be shunned upon. It should be shunned upon. So that's been my rant / Freddie Gray story. If you go on Wikipedia, you get all this information, and it's very detailed and nicely drawn out. And I said, if look at the public response if you want to. There's you'll see that you'll look at 2015 Baltimore riots. Just I say it's in reaction to the unrest in multiple